Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday Sports Bus presented by 1450 WXVW. I'm your host, Greg Brom. Joining me tonight, my good friend Bob Valvano from ESPN Radio is here with us tonight. And the big news of the weekend, of course, is Lamar Jackson winning the Heisman Trophy. But before we get to that, I do want to thank everybody who sent out their congratulations to our family. My brother Jeff taking the head football job at Purdue after winning back-to-back Conference USA championships, and it was truly a couple of historic years, I think, down in Bowling Green. But Purdue came calling, Bob, and basically they sold Jeff on the job. And I want you to put your sports analyst hat on totally right here. And,
all right.
And just from a sports analyst perspective, what do you think of the decision of Jeff Brom to go to Purdue?
Well, in full disclosure, we talked about this when you came on my radio show, and I told you, and I said then, and I mean it absolutely as much now, I think he made the perfect choice based on the other names of the schools that we heard. I mean, Baylor is a they've still got a lot of things that I'm less than comfortable that their house is in order. There's still some frayed nerves and ill will and lawsuits coming, and I don't know that you want to throw yourself in the middle of that. Cincinnati's a wonderful school, but they're not in a Power 5 conference when it comes to football. And Purdue is in arguably the best football conference this past year in the country, in the Big Ten. They really, really loved when Joe Tiller played that high-energy offensive style that your brother certainly has made very popular. And, you know, Tiller had a run there where they were winning, 8 games, 9 games, 8 games, going to bowl games, and people were really thrilled and excited. And I think it's a perfect fit for him. I think Purdue, I've done a number of basketball games there. It's a really, quite candidly, it's a very classy school. The people, really do care about the image they project. And so I think he's going to be a wonderful fit. Now, if you don't screw it up for him, that's the thing I'm worried about.
Exactly. You got to keep me under tight reins up there before I mess anything up. But, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's really excited about the opportunity. And it was a tough decision. I mean, he wasn't looking to leave. He was not looking to go anywhere. I mean, he's not a guy that's motivated by money. But the opportunity, and he got to speak with the new athletic director, Mike Babinski of Purdue, a guy who just came from Georgia Tech.
Very respected guy.
Yeah, very respected guy. Mitch Daniels, the former governor, is the president of Purdue, and they really had a very professional presentation. Very professional to Jeff, and he knew they were serious about winning, and football is important to Purdue fans. I mean, you might think of Indiana as a basketball state, as people think of Kentucky as sometimes as a basketball state, but football is important. I think with the level of commitment that Purdue was displaying to Jeff, they were making a statement that they're serious about turning the football program around. And Bob, Jeff, I mean, Purdue hasn't had he is starting with the program at a low point.
Yes.
So when you think about it that way, a lot of times the only place to go is up. So,
right.
He's excited about the opportunity.
No, he should be. And you told me, Rick Pitino said to me a long time ago, if you take a job, if you're thinking of taking a job, ask yourself, relative to the other teams in your league, are you a have or a have not? Doesn't matter if you're a have compared to where your friend's coaching in another league or in New York or in California. Just ask yourself, are they a have relative to the rest of the league? And you were telling me you think they are a have and are getting even more in that realm because they're putting money in facilities. You told me about that. And that's what I look at. And I say, well, heck, if that guy, I mean, your brother's a likable guy, and who wouldn't want to play for that kind of style and that system? Purdue's a great school. So if they look at it and say, well, they have as good a facilities as you try to look at it the other way. What would keep a kid from coming here? Well, their facilities aren't the same. They don't have the same commitment. Well, you're telling me
they're going to.
They have.
August, brand new football facility opens. So they're going to have everything they need at that point.
Well, so then, if he gets good players, he knows what to do with them. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Speaking of good players, last night, Lamar Jackson brings home the Heisman Trophy. Bob, I mean, this is something I really was a doubter at the beginning of the year. I just didn't think that Louisville had the national reputation yet to win the Heisman Trophy. I always felt like you had to be the darling of ESPN. You had to be the darling of the sports media to win the award. But Lamar, and this is unusual in today's day and age, he was the early front runner and was able to hold on to it. I mean, were you worried at any point this season? Did you think he might have opened the door too wide?
Well, it's not so much opening the door wide. It's that he lost his last 2 games, and we are, for better or worse, and I might argue worse, what's the latest flavor society? I mean, look how fans clamor for the next recruiting class. They haven't even seen the current class play yet, and they're already talking about who's going to be in next year's class. It's how we're wired. What's the next thing? The next thing. He had been the thing for so long that you start wondering if guys aren't going to be looking for the next thing, and that might have made them vote elsewhere. But I said what I think happened is there were people who I'm sure were ready to just fill in his name 8 weeks ago and not think twice about it. And, Deshaun Watson started to play really well in important games down the stretch. And they did lose a couple of games. I think people said, well, let me go back and look. But the problem is, once you took a minute to go back and look, you were more convinced than ever. How can you not vote for him? I mean, these numbers are literally historic in nature, the kinds of things that you put in a all-time great season kind of deal. And 9-3 is still a pretty good year. And so you put 9-3 and all those numbers together. I don't see how you could not voted for him.
It's funny. He had his Heisman moment in the second game of the season against Syracuse, leaping
hurdling
the defender. Leaping the defender. It was hard for anyone else the rest of the season to overcome that. And Deshaun Watson had a really good year. I mean, a tremendous year. But he really didn't have that big moment at the end, that big opponent at the end of the year. If he'd had a signature upset or something at the very end, maybe he catches him. But Lamar, fantastic year. What does it say about Louisville football?
Well, you see, why I was going to build on what you said earlier. If you go back and do a little bit of research, you have to go back to 1989, 1990 to find a Heisman winner that's not from, for lack of a better word, what you'd call one of the college brand name teams. 1989, Andre Ware won it from Houston. In 1990, I'm not even sure this team belongs in this discussion, but they're not in the Power 5 league. So BYU won it with Ty Detmer. But that's 26 years ago, where the winners have all been Oklahoma, Alabama, Florida State, Ohio State, USC, all the the real brand names. So to me, I think it's really, really significant that now when you're reading this laundry list of football powers, now all of a sudden right there is going to be Louisville. And what you hope is that they can – now, Houston did that in 89. They're still trying to get in the Power 5 league.
Right.
So it doesn't mean you're going to parlay that, but they're already in a Power 5 league. They had a terrific year. He's back for another season. That's what you got to hope for as a Louisville fan. Let me ask you, as a player there, could you have imagined a guy from your school would win the Heisman?
We never
seems
thought
so foreign.
It's so far-fetched. I mean, it's such a barrier that was like breaking the sound barrier or something. I mean, having this happen at Louisville and really think about how far it's come from the 1980s and when Howard Schnellenberger took over. I mean, it's just been. He was a prophet, and it's probably turned out, and we talked about it on your show, it's probably turning out better than he even thought it could. And Louisville's positioned great with Lamar Jackson coming back. I mean, when Jeff took the Purdue job, we almost wanted to just say, can you delay it one year? Just hold that job open for 1 year because of the opener next year versus Lamar Jackson in Louisville.
It's funny, you know what? You should say that. Did you see what Murray State's doing?
They're promoting it.
Come and play for. You want to play against the Heisman winner? Come and play for us. I thought that was really intelligent. That was really clever.
That really was, and we might try to do
the same thing
over the next several months. Okay, we're here with Bob Valvano tonight. We come back, we'll talk more football, more Lamar Jackson, more Cards and Cats basketball, right here at the Sunday Sports Buzz. We've been talking about Lamar Jackson winning the Heisman Trophy, Louisville's first Heisman Trophy winner, and the impact that could have on the program. First of all, Bob, has Lamar returned your jacket yet? I know that he got that out of your closet. The coat that he was wearing, the red coat.
Come on.
Has he returned
I got to
it?
admit.
That's what yours is.
The other guys all were kind of looking like CEOs, and he came out with no socks and a tuxedo, red velvet tuxedo. But you know what? Listen.
You'll see some of those at Louisville basketball games, I think, this winter, some jackets like that. It was sharp.
Let's talk about something that's a little sensitive but should be said. For all the trollers and haters, he's not a great public speaker, okay? He's not. Bill Gates is probably not a good passer, and Beyonce is probably not a good open field runner. Everybody has different skill sets. Lamar's not a great orator, but I loved the way he came across last night.
Too.
He was so earnest and sincere. He's a guy, in 5 minutes watching him, you know that he loves football. He was so excited to be there. He loves his mother, and he really enjoyed the whole experience. You could tell his interaction with the other guys. And you think to yourself, when you're 19, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a whole thing of excitement and fun, and not a guy who's jaded, who's wondering what this is going to do for his brand. He was up there as the youngest Heisman winner, and he came across as a real genuine person, and I thought that was really, really significant.
And you know what I like about Lamar, and you probably appreciate this as someone who interviews players and coaches on a regular basis. I mean, I've heard Lamar throughout the season as well. He answers the question. He's not giving you a polished, rehearsed answer. When he was up there, even his written statement was I thought it was very heartfelt.
Yes, it was.
And
but the couple of times when he was
he's like, "This is crazy." You're right. That's how we were feeling. This is crazy. I mean, you can relate to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I thought that. And you know what else we should mention? And I sent a tweet out about this, and a lot of people responded, so I guess it struck a nerve. Tip of the hat to Lamar, deserves all the warm and fuzzies. But how about a quick nod to Teddy Bridgewater? Because if Teddy doesn't do what he did here, I'm not sure Lamar comes here. And I say that because Lamar said that himself. I mean, he was, he wasn't like he was unknown. He had a lot of other options, and there's a lot of other options in his home state of Florida. But he said he watched Teddy come from Florida and have a wonderful experience here, and he thought this might be a good fit for him. And Teddy they're two peas in a pod. They're humble, fun-loving, wonderful, genuine kids, and I just think Teddy deserves a little nod on this.
And someone else I think deserves credit too, and you could tell it affected him a lot last night, was Bobby Petrino, coaching a Heisman winner, and he's a guy, I remember Lamar started the first game. He might have played one play, but Bobby said it. He goes, "This guy's going to be really good." Now, it took the entire season. He had to work through all the kinks, and then at the end of the year, he got into the flow of the offense. But Bobby believed in Lamar early on, said, "That's my guy." Worked through some bumps, but I know it meant a lot to him being the coach of a Heisman winner.
Yeah, there's so many great coaches who go their whole career and never have that opportunity to coach a Heisman winner. And it puts, Louisville in rare company. Sean Moth sent a tweet out about there's only like 5 schools, I think, that have had a Heisman winner and a Wooden Award winner, and there's one other award in there. I can't remember what it is, but it's a very prestigious award. So it's a great day. It was a great day for Louisville football, there's no question.
Absolutely. Well, let's turn a little bit to Louisville basketball. And Louisville won yesterday, and they've won a couple of games since the Baylor loss. And it turns out Baylor, they'd
be a 1 seed right now.
Absolutely. So that's not a bad loss. Louisville had a huge lead in that game and let it slip away. But just in general, how do you think Louisville's playing?
Well, I think there's 2 things that when you analyze this team, you have to say. One is that when they're good, they've been very good. The huge lead on Baylor. You certainly there's a play against them last night. That kid was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
26 rebounds.
How's Rick feel? Someone getting 26 rebounds? Was he angry about that?
No, he just went and the post-game interview, that's the first thing he talked about. He said, "First, I just got to say congratulations." That's the one thing that coaches, I always say, you can be selfish in that part of the game. A coach doesn't mind if you try and get every single rebound in the game. No coach is going to mind. If you try and take every shot, they're not going to like that. But rebounding, you can be very selfish. So he had nothing but admiration for the young man. But you know what, Louisville, if you want to say this, their problem is they have to be mediocre better. Meaning they don't trade punches well. When they come out and they're moving the ball and they're following the game plan and they're playing defense in front of their own bench, when Rick can orchestrate a lot of things, they look great. and they have these huge leads, and then they go to the other end and they don't trade punches. They either play great or the lead goes, they play terrifically, they get a 20-point lead. You know this, Greg. Then that's the point in the game where you want it to go 20, 18, 19, 17, 18, 19, 17, 18, 16. They go 20, 16, 14, 12, 8, and all of a sudden there's a game. And part of it is because they are not, I'm not sure they're ever going to be a great offensive team. They're not. They just aren't. They don't have great individual players. So when the game gets off the rails, they have to be willing to come down and make a 5-pass possession, pass and move and have the focus. Instead, a guy tries to come down and shoot them out of the slump. I'll make a play right here. And they're not really created that way. And so then it snowballs, and then all of a sudden they're not setting their press up, and they're not as good defensively. So, but if they can learn to trade punches a little bit.
Well, yeah, right. They can't plug the leak. When the boat starts leaking.
Whatever cliche, I say get off the rails.
That's what Russ Smith was so great at.
Well,
he was a drought buster.
Yeah.
It was like
it's a run stopper.
We can't score, period. And it doesn't look like we're going to score. Well, Russ would just come down and he'd throw some crazy shot or two, and they
the
go
run
in.
Was over.
Okay, it's over.
Right.
We broke it.
You're right.
And this team had. I don't know if they have a person like that or if they just haven't found out which one it is. You got to have. I mean, Mitchell maybe. I don't know who it would be, but you're right. They need more consistent offensive play. I think from more players.
Well, perfect example. Last night in the game on Saturday, the first half they had 3 assists on 16 field goals, and they shot 38%. Second half, I think they had 13 assists, and they shot over 50%. I don't know what, pass the ball, you'll get it back. I mean, but you got to think about passing the ball first, and that's, he said they're not selfish kids, but they're kids that are a product of the social media generation. They see the reporters and the analysts saying, "What? Quentin Snyder's only shooting 28%, and Donovan Mitchell's only shooting 30%." And they come out and they want, "Oh yeah, I spent all this time in the gym over the summer. I want to show you I can shoot." Well, what Rick would say, show them you can shoot by getting great shots. Don't, pass the ball and the shots will be there. Right now, they sometimes get a little over-anxious and very hard to shoot a good percentage that way.
Okay, we're talking Louisville basketball. We'll discuss them a little bit more, talk about Kentucky, who got a win today. College football playoff as well. I want to see what Bob thinks about the playoff system and the way the teams are selected, and if he would like college basketball to release rankings throughout the season like college football has done as well. Get into some of that right here at the Sunday Sports Buzz. Greg Brom and Bob Valvano here at the Sunday Sports Buzz. We're here every Sunday night from 11 to 12. Bob is he's on your radio dial every weekday, noon to 3.
Correct.
On 680 ESPN, also doing basketball games for Louisville and all over the country for ESPN as well. And Bob, we've been talking about Louisville basketball. Just, a general analysis or evaluation of some of the players on the team. Who's been better this year than you thought they were? Who's played better than you thought they would?
I think collectively the postmen are giving him almost everything they can give him. And he uses that exact phraseology almost after every game. I mean, they have worked so hard, and they all have developed some individual post moves, and they are scoring the ball. They've gotten better in just about everything. They're still not collectively great free throw shooters, although they've gotten better. Motz has come a long way, and Ray's shooting better free throws. They rebound. If you look at the combined numbers of the postmen, I think that you would say that they've been really giving them exactly what they need. And you see it early in the game. As you look at Mango, who came out on fire a couple of games ago when he scored like the first 5 baskets. The big guys have been instrumental in the good starts. As you see,
well, I tell you what, Mango
there.
too, Bob. I mean, he's a guy. He puts up pretty good numbers. I still, when he touches the ball, I cringe.
Well, he's
got.
He is who he is. His hands are not going to suddenly get great. He's a senior and an old senior at that. But the big guys are running and they're blocking shots and they're playing hard. And you're looking at the second half highlights. But look at the ball movement. Look at the ball movement. I mean, it's one of those things where I always used to say, half kiddingly, I think players should all have to coach for a year before they play. They'd understand why the coaches all say what they say, because when you watch them, it's night and day with the ball movement. You saw Tony Hicks missed the layup, but he was a little better last game.
Yeah.
And
VJ King is somebody
VJ's
too that
I
can see him
player.
by the end of the year, he's playing 25 minutes a game.
I think so. I think so as well. And I think Rick senses it too. The thing I'm not sure of right now, and God bless Coach Pitino, he does it the way he's done it. I mean, he was running guys in and out of the game yesterday like he was paying off on a campaign promise. I mean, and so I don't know who is who and where. I mean, and I don't know that it's that big a deal in his mind, but I think it is harder for players. UB Brown used to say at the pro level, man, that's why he had his second unit, and he substituted pretty much on the clock in the first half. You knew, Greg Brom, you're going in at the 7-minute mark of the second quarter, or whatever it was, or the 3-minute mark of the first quarter. And guys like that. They embraced it. And Rick says all the time, starting's not important. It's who you're playing, in the latter parts of the game, the end of the game. Well, it's easier to embrace that when well, I'm not starting, but I know I'm going in with 5 minutes to go, whatever it may be. And I mean, Tony Hicks went from playing not at all to being the first guard off the bench. And, David Levitch, who he says he loves the way he passes the ball, he was the last guard in yesterday. But Rick said to me after the game that was because I know the kid can pass the ball. I don't need to see that. I wanted to see what the other guys could do. So that's great. But as I'm just saying, as an observer, it's very hard to gauge exactly what he's thinking. Like, a perfect example, Motts has really played well the last 3 games, but Anis is coming back from a concussion probably this week. What do you do? My guess is he slides Motts back behind Anis again.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think you're right. Well, am I crazy for thinking, I thought this guy would play a lot more than he has so far, for thinking that Ryan McMahon could be some type of wild card? I mean, to me, that's your drought buster. Throw him in there, hit a couple threes, then everybody feels good, and maybe you start running a better offense. But is he gonna be relegated to the bench where we don't see him for weeks, games at a time?
2 things. Paul Rogers says the exact same thing you do every game that we have. I mean, he's just a huge proponent of Ryan. And the second thing is, I've now interviewed Rick in post games for 16 years,
which I love it every time. I make a point to tune in because he is
kind
open and honest in his discussions with you.
So we have a little bit of I still don't go in and just pop my legs on his desk and stuff, but I'm comfortable enough where I can say things. And I said, Coach, you're going to have to start playing Ryan McMahon. He said, I know, I don't. I just we know he can shoot it, but he's just when he comes in, we're so much smaller, and right now we need our guards to rebound, and there's that, and so that's the problem. There's nobody that's going to give you everything. Like VJ King is really one of the more accomplished offensive players he has. But Rick said, and I think he's telling the truth, this team has got to be built defense first, because they're going to have to do that every night. Their offense is going to come and go a little bit, but they've got to play defense. And VJ, by his own admission, was a little bit lost. I mean, he said, the possessions where they're playing press, and then they get back in that mind meld zone where they're playing zone and man and zone in the same possession. And he looked like the cartoon character with the question mark over his head, and so Rick was like, well, I can't play him. But boy, he's so gifted and so skilled. And Dengadell has really come on.
He's come on.
And so Rick thought about, well, maybe I can play them both together. If he plays Donovan at the point and those two at the wing, now all of a sudden they're pretty big.
Well, I'll tell you what, but also could Rick go small and have one of them play the 4? He's done that with Couric before. He did it with Swapshire.
The game against Southern Illinois, when this kid had the 26 rebounds, when the game turned when he played small. And I was kidding David Padgett after the game. I said, Dave, I hope you don't get offended, because I said, but the game turned when you guys went small. He said, believe me, I know. I said, there's no question. So it was the small lineup that actually rebounded better than the big lineup. So I agree with you. But the beauty of that is, I always like when Rick Pitino has a lot of moves he can make. And it may be frustrating sometimes as a fan because he doesn't make the same move from one game to the next. But boy, when he's got a lot of options,
this is when he experiments.
And this is the time of the year he is. He's like the mad scientist. He's in there with his.
Are they? You think they're tracking properly for this stretch coming up in a couple weeks where you have Kentucky and Notre Dame and Virginia and Indiana? I can't remember the exact order of those 4 games, but they're right in a row. Are they tracking to where? Right now, pick the record. Those 4 games. What's Louisville's record during those 4?
In those 4 games, they've got Kentucky at home, Indiana in Indianapolis, and then they've got Notre Dame away and Virginia home.
Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you right now, Rick wants to win every single game on the schedule But if he played those 4 games and you could guarantee he got 2 wins, I think he'd be pretty pleased about that. And if he got 3, he would say, "Where do I sign?" So, but I mean, think about it. You got Kentucky, who was the #1 team in the country, and
Virginia has Louisville's number.
But Notre Dame away.
Like
And Notre Dame has been playing great. I mean, anytime you got an away game and a neutral site game and a team that was the former #1 in the country, it's tough to go in there and say, "Yeah, we're going to win 3 of those 4." I mean, I think if you think about it, assuming they win this game on Saturday, that would make them 9-1. I think, right? I think it's 9-1.
I think, yeah.
Is it 9-1?
No, they'll be 10-1 if they win next week.
I mean, so if you get through that stretch, and even if they lost 2 of them and were 12-3. It means they would have 2 really good wins there. They'd have a win over Wichita State. They would have a resume that, for this part of the year would get them a good NCAA seed. So I think if you come out of that with a couple of wins, that'd be terrific. If it's 3 wins, it's great.
Exactly. And you look at, and we'll talk a little bit about Kentucky, the team that beat Louisville, currently undefeated, ranked 4th. The team that's beaten Kentucky, undefeated, ranked 2nd in UCLA. I mean, Louisville and Kentucky, to me, are going to finish the season in the top. They're going to be I think they'll be top 6, both of them. That's me. I just think top 6 when we get to the end as far as quality. I don't know about seeding because Louisville's they're going to take some losses along the way. But I think they're positioned really well for that stretch and beyond. Okay, come back. We'll talk about Kentucky basketball. A big loss last week against UCLA that I want to get Bob's opinion of. And they win again today and talk about their team and look ahead to the matchup with the Cards here in a couple of weeks right here on the Sunday Sports Buzz. Basketball, they start the season gangbusters. I mean, flying up and down the court. They look so athletic. And then all of a sudden last Saturday, we were playing our conference championship game, so I didn't get to watch any of it. But after our game, I see the score, and I was in shock. I really was in shock. UCLA, I know they beat him last year. I mean, in the road. But they go into Rupp and beat Kentucky and score 97 points?
UCLA's
what happened?
Good. Well, it tells you 2 things. UCLA's good. I mean, we still, for some reason, because Alford has gotten so much criticism, we're only reluctantly coming to terms with the fact they're really good. Yeah. Lonzo Ball.
His son's real good, too.
His son can play. Lonzo Ball's a stud. He's put an offensive team together. He was always a very good offensive coach. So they are good. And we found out that Kentucky, listen, I don't know how you feel maybe if this happens to you in football, but when I go see a team very early, there's a handful of teams sometimes that throughout history, I've walked out of there and went, oh, whoa. And and Kentucky's Anthony Davis team was like that when I saw them. I've done the Champions Classic for ESPN Radio for the last 5 years. So every year, very early, very, very early, we get to see Duke and Michigan State and Kansas and Kentucky. And I walked out of there after that Anthony Davis team, and I was like, they were scary. They won this year, and the guards were very nice players. I walked out of there and said, boy, those are special guards. But I was like, the people who started to go a little crazy, I was like, I hope you understand, Tom Izzo's this is not his regular team. And I didn't walk out of there with that sense. Now, the UK fans will look at this and want to be screaming at the screen. I'm not saying they won't go to the Final Four, they might even win it. But it's like Villanova. I didn't see Villanova at the beginning of last year and go, oh, my goodness. But they evolved as the year went on. They became the best team in the country. And they still don't get any respect.
Yeah, they
still haven't lost, and people still don't think they're any good. But, I mean, so Kentucky might wind up winning the whole thing. But they are going to take more of a work in progress than that team defensively with Anthony Davis was so stifling, even at that early part of the year. I was like, if they played the tournament right now, this team might win it. So that's the difference. Their guards, though, are special. And Fox plays like a kid who's been in the NBA for 10 years. He so lets the game come to him. But they don't shoot it great collectively either. And I think that's going to be a concern throughout the year. So they have their own issues.
I tell you what, and as a Louisville fan, what gives me a little bit of hope is that while Bam Adebayo is a big body and he's got great potential, I'm not as he doesn't frighten me as much as a
not.
low post offensive player. Carl Towns.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say.
Like Julius Randle, who Louisville couldn't handle him underneath when they played against Kentucky. So they don't have that guy that they're just going to dump it down. I actually think Louisville has the advantage in underneath, which
Mike Pratt
gives me some hope.
who I do the show with every Friday, my good friend who's the analyst for UK, said right now I think Louisville probably has an edge in the interior players, and he said we, meaning UK, has the edge with the guards because those two guards are maybe as good a group of freshman backcourt players as you've seen. But the guys that intrigue me, I'm going to be interested to see before it's all said and done, what Derek Willis ultimately does, what Dominique Hawkins ultimately does.
They're important.
I think those guys are going to be important. And I think on the one hand, if Cal goes deep into his bench, which is not his nature, he doesn't like to really, he likes to have a little core of 7 guys or 8 guys. That's kind of been his modus operandi for a long time. But this year's team, he's got some other guys that I think could be important, especially in light of the fact that some of that veteran presence would really help them, and some of those guys can make some shots.
All right, Bob. See, tell me if my theory's crazy or not.
All right. Well, I like theories.
Here's my theory on Louisville and Kentucky, and how Kentucky has dominated the rivalry over the Calipari era.
Right.
And I think it is in Louisville's head a little bit. I think it's in their head about playing Kentucky somewhat. I mean, Kentucky wins in Rupp. They win in the Yum Center. They don't play good for several weeks, and they play great against Louisville.
Yeah.
I actually think that the game being on a Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, it's a regular work day. It's like a weekday. It's like your regular routine of playing on the weekend and on a weeknight, weeknight, that it brings the game back down to earth for Louisville players. Like, it's not an event like it is on a Saturday where the whole day is focused around Louisville and Kentucky, the dream game, the rivalry. We're playing it on Wednesday night. You're getting off work. Everybody's going there and shooting around. I think they might play more loose. They might not put as much pressure on themselves. That it's just a regular weeknight ESPN game, and it's not the big extravaganza on Saturday. What do you think?
Well, you were a player, so yeah. I mean, I've often said basketball is a hard game to play with the veins bursting out of your neck. You gotta. I had to laugh a little bit. I mean, Motts, who, sometimes will do that to himself. He had a little rough start. The ball slipped out of his hand. I don't know if you saw. He wasn't sure he was going to dunk it or lay it in. Popped out of his hand, and finally Rick just stands in front of the bench and screams at him with the veins bursting. Motts, relax! And I think, that's always going to be useful. And somebody looks like they're going to have a stroke, screaming at you to relax. But I think there may be something to what you say. The game is already big enough. And the other factor is, I mean, Kentucky during that stretch has had pretty good teams.
Pretty good teams, but then they'll go lose on the road in the SEC to somebody they'll lose to Ole Miss on the road the week after they come into the Yum Center and just.
Louisville has brought out the best in them. They really have.
They do bring out the best in them.
They have. So I don't know. We'll see. But it is going to be interesting in a midweek Wednesday. You could play that game at 4:00 in the morning on a. In the middle of July, and it would be an event, but we'll see how that factors.
Well, do you think that in looking ahead, Kentucky's so fast now? Louisville wants to play up tempo too, but does it get muddied up? Is this one of those rock fight type games and slugfest that we've had a few of those in this series recently, where it's defense? I mean, it is the 2 best defensive teams in the country almost. But do you see a game where nobody can score, or are we going to go up and down the court in this one?
Well, I think they're going to try and go up and down. I mean, Cal and UCLA, they played 97-92, so that was 190 points.
Is it to Louisville's benefit to do that with
Kentucky? It depends on how. I mean, because to your point, is it possible we have a possession game, as Rick refers to it? Sure, because what are the 2 things that neither of these teams consistently do great, and that is shoot the ball. I mean, they're both not great shooting teams, and Louisville is still 1 or 2. They go back and forth in the Pomeroys and their defensive effectiveness. Kentucky's very, very good too, although I think both these coaches, like all coaches, think they could get better. So, yeah, I think they're both going to defend the other, and if it's a day where, Monk is not making shots, Quentin and Mitchell are not making shots, and points may be at a premium, you might very well have a knockdown drag out.
Yeah, I think make Briscoe shoot.
That's
make Briscoe shoot
example.
the ball.
Briscoe's going through the same thing that Rick's going through with Mitchell. The coach is trying to convince them he's a good shooter. Rick tells everybody who'll listen that Mitchell's worked all summer, he's a good shooter, and Briscoe's done the same thing. He spent all summer working on his shooting, but neither of them are what you would consider knockdown shooters right now. I mean, and so when guys that are that important to your team are inconsistent shooters, you're going to struggle sometimes.
Okay, we're talking everything tonight with Bob Valvano, and we'll be right back here at the Sunday Sports Buzz. The debate is over. The 4 teams for the college football playoff have been selected, and we'll have Alabama facing Pac-12 champion Washington and Clemson versus Ohio State. Ohio State not winning the Big Ten, but only losing 1 game, beating Michigan their final regular season game. They go to the playoff. Bob, I know the playoff committee got a lot of criticism throughout the year, and a lot of people don't like the process, and I do think there are flaws in the process, but compared to all the other systems that have been used in the past, I actually thought each ranking that the playoff committee put out, I actually agreed with almost everything they did. I mean, I thought that they did a good job of not being prisoner to the moment all the time. What happened just this past week, looking at the full body of work, taking everything in perspective. And, I think it was tough between Penn State, keeping the question this year at the end was keeping Penn State out, having won the Big Ten championship, and letting Ohio State in. Penn State had beaten Ohio State, but Ohio State did have 1 loss. Penn State had 2 losses. That was the trump card.
Well, that's what everybody who likes this system says. Mm-hmm. I do not like this system. I can't stand this system. And I can't stand the system because it's illogical to me. I always want to give you the benefit of that. You told me, not you, but I mean the powers that be said, here's 5 leagues that we're anointing as the most important leagues in the country. And then they create a playoff where only 4 of the champions on any given year can even get in. So you're starting. That's why I say you're criticizing the committee. To me, I feel bad for the committee. It's like trying to mow a lawn with a toaster. I mean, they don't have the right tools, so of course they're going to get criticized. So here's what it really stuck in my craw this year. You knew you were going to get me on the soapbox. Because no matter what they did this year with the debate over who's going to be 4, no matter what choice they made, it was going to underscore the absurdity of the process, okay? Because let's just take a look and say that if they put Penn State and Ohio State in, that means they were going to take Washington, a 1-loss conference champion, from one of the 5 leagues that they told us is one of the best leagues in the country, and frankly, the computers say the Pac-12 is the 2nd or 3rd best league, and leave them out. That would have been ridiculous.
Yes.
If they took Ohio State out, then that would have made those Tuesday night television shows ridiculous because they told us all year, they're 2, they're 3, they're 2, they're 2, they're 3. They don't play. They win their last game against the number 3 team on that list, and now you're going to tell us, they dropped to number 5. Yeah. So that wouldn't have made any sense. And then to me, it's absurd that Penn State's not in. Because the reason that you're supposed to be having this committee is to assess teams from different regions and different leagues. They're not only in the same league, they're in the same division. They're in the exact same division as Ohio State. They won that division that Ohio State did not, won the conference championship game against Wisconsin, and then went home. So all this argument that the people say, this makes the games more meaningful, you do realize you made the Big Ten championship game meaningless. It meant nothing. The Oklahoma State game meant nothing. How is that better to me? And you're right. Is it better than what you had before? Sure it is. It's like if you used to get hit in the face with an anvil and now you're getting hit in the face with a shovel, it's a little bit better. It doesn't mean it's good. That's my argument.
Yeah, so, I am with you. I think the fairest way is to have 8 teams.
Exactly.
The 5 conference champions get automatic bids. And then you have 3
at large.
And people say, that will take out some of the drama of the season. No, it won't. It actually will add drama to the championship weekend because you're Virginia Tech playing Clemson. You win the game, you're in. You're knocking an at-large team out. What if Ohio State's sitting there as now we're the 3rd at-large, But if Virginia Tech wins, we're out. I think you
Greg,
have just as much drama.
And you know what? Here's the other argument. What I've said is, if you go to 8, then team number 9 is going to get upset. I understand that. If you get to 16, team 17 will be upset. So it's not like you're going to get, everybody's going to be happy. But here's my argument. In this system, this year, in my opinion, Penn State deserved the chance to play for the championship. Certainly Ohio State deserved the opportunity to play for the championship. You can make a case that Michigan deserved the chance. You can make a case that Oklahoma deserved the chance. They won their league, a very good league, and won it, and they were eliminated because they lost to Houston the second week of the season. So what I would say is, in this system, who would the 8th team be? I don't know, that's kind of hard. The 8th team, probably their resume was not as good as the 7th. But to me, that's a lesser sin than leaving out a team that deserves to be in. You're giving a team, an 8th place team, they could be a Cinderella kind of team that maybe people say, well, their resume wasn't as strong. But I do know the 7 teams that earned a spot in there, the 4 that actually got in, Penn State, Oklahoma, and Michigan, they all would have had a chance. I would have felt better having them with an opportunity.
All right, the college football playoff each week would release rankings starting about week 10. I can't remember, not week 10, about week 8 of the season started to release their rankings. Would you like to see that in basketball? Would you like to see, starting in February, a weekly release of where teams stood?
No, I really don't. I mean, it's just for a couple of reasons. One, we have automatic qualifiers. So I don't need these guys to tell me that, if Duke wins the ACC tournament, they're going. Or not even the ACC tournament. If, team wins the Sun Belt tournament, they're going. That's the beauty of college basketball. That committee's job is to pick the 30, whatever it is, at-large teams, and equally significantly to do the seeding. That's very important. But we don't need to go through that each week. I mean, and in football, I'll be honest with you, and I know it's an ESPN product and it's great, they're helping their TV ratings, but that thing is just so tedious to me and so absurd that, take an hour every week to announce 4 teams that ultimately, like I said, really don't matter, because at the end of the season, we just looked at here. Would you have known, based on that, was there a certainty in your mind about who actually was going to go if chaos had ensued that last week, if Clemson had lost, and if, I was going to say if Penn State lost, but they did lose. So, I mean, the whole point is, I don't know that it's doing anything other than what they wanted to do, which is to make people get together and talk, and that's fine. But I don't need it. And I certainly don't need it.
And you know what?
I
don't. I mean, did I enjoy the weekly show? Yeah, I enjoyed the debate.
Because they talk about college football.
They talk about college football. But you know what? I don't think it served a purpose. I don't think in basketball. I think when you do release a ranking like that, you almost pigeonhole yourself into a stance.
Exactly.
And you have to have really great integrity a lot of times to be able to. Let's say somebody has a backloaded schedule. So all their good games are at the end, and you start the ranking, and they haven't played all the good games yet, so they're real low, but you have someone else much higher. Are you going to feel like you're going to get criticized if you move them up? So you're opening yourself up.
That's exactly
right. I kind of let's see it all. You say it sometimes, let the cake bake. Let the cake bake, and at the end of the year, okay, now we evaluate it, and then they give it to us on Selection Sunday. Even though we get it early by the leaks, we get leaks, which is that's the new thing now in the tournament. Now we're going to get the bracket leaked to us early, but we already have Lenardi. He's good enough for our weekly
pretty good
show.
At it.
He's actually good.
The thing is, though, that to me is what. When you talk about enjoying the Tuesday show, that's the part of it that I understand and I agree with. That's the fun of Lenardi. He's not making the picks, but he's throwing something out there, and then we take an issue. No, I think, this is a better choice. I agree with you on this. I disagree with you. I think that's fun, but the fact of the matter is this is the official people on Tuesday, and you're right. They're painting themselves into corners, I think. Like I said, they're trying to mow a lawn with a toaster. They're trying to do a job that the system is ill-suited to do. Put the 5 champions in. Or why do we have leagues in the first place?
Why are we playing a championship game?
Get rid of the darn thing. That's another thing. So you're absolutely right. Play the 5. Have them pick the 3 at large. And first 4 are on campus. So
Yes.
that would be another. That
get
would
to
make
host.
even more meaningful
get
games
to host
because
the
now
game.
even the 5 conference champions, one of them is going to have to play on the road. So that team had better. You can't just say, well, what the heck? They'll play an awful non-conference
like Alabama.
schedule.
They can't. Oh, we're in anyway if we lose. No, you better win.
Exactly.
You might not
Or you
host
might
that
not
first
the first
round game.
round game. Exactly. So
Okay.
you and I should run.
We'll write the commissioner right here of NCAA Sports, Bob Valvano. Okay, we'll be right back. Our last segment here at the Sunday Sports Buzz. Lamar Jackson wins the Heisman. We're looking ahead to Louisville, Kentucky basketball here in a couple of weeks, talking the college football playoff. A couple of bowl games coming up, Louisville and LSU, and Kentucky in a bowl game playing Georgia Tech. There was some news this week, Bob, and I'm not up on all the details of it, but Tom Jurich speaking about the arena, and there's a lot of debate about the financing of the arena, and Tom, I think he went public saying that Louisville doesn't want to be the only entity involved that gives something back, and saying that Louisville's been a good partner. And I don't know all the financial specifics of it, but what do you think about the PR battle going on?
Well, the only thing I could say is when that whole debate was going on, we were doing a radio show, and we got a chance to talk to Tom Jurich about it a little bit. And in his heart of hearts, he really would have liked, I think, to have built that on campus. That was his goal all along, was to make an on-campus arena or put it out by Freedom Hall where they were playing. And he thinks, in his mind, I know he does, that he was a team player here, that everybody convinced him it was better for the city to go move it downtown. And so, as part of that, yes, they made some very big concessions to the University of Louisville. But I think what he's thinking is, yeah, you made some concessions, but it wasn't like, I held your feet to the fire. I was not really
They needed him. They needed Louisville, University of Louisville.
And so I said, all right, well, if you really want to go downtown, that's not my first choice, but then I would like this and this. And they said, okay. Now, don't come back and make it sound like I'm the bad guy. And I understand that. I appreciate that. But, listen, anytime Louisville is involved in something that's got state funding and everything else, there's always going to be political football, no pun intended.
Yeah, and almost sometimes when I hear the criticism or people attacking the university and the university, it almost is like you feel like it's red and blue.
Well,
line.
you feel like you never know when somebody's really
into
looking
the
at it,
political
or if it's just another thing to just
Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah,
stick the needle
exactly.
in it.
Okay, hey, you've watched a lot of basketball this year already. What do you think about those top teams? Villanova. UCLA's number 2. Who are the teams you like right now?
Well, I think that right now you could go probably 10 or 12 of teams that you say would have a legitimate shot to go to the Final Four. And they're the usual cast of suspects. Duke looked sensational in the Jimmy V. They are only going to get better. Villanova, nobody wants to take them. People only begrudgingly realizing how good they are. Kentucky's going to be very good again. Carolina's good. Kansas is good. Gonzaga is very, very good. I think there's some others that'll emerge as we get going here. So I think there's probably 10 or 12, and there'll be some people coming on. Creighton is one of the great surprise teams of the year. They're off to a great start. That Big East has turned into a really good league.
It really has. Tennessee almost beat Carolina today at home. I don't know if you saw any of that game, but Rick Barnes must be getting it done at Tennessee.
Yeah, he's won wherever he's been. He's always mired in that debate about is he just getting great players but the guy can coach a little bit too. So they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, that's why I think Louisville is.
Florida looked pretty good in New York too, by the way. Sorry.
At the Jimmy V? Yeah. Well, Duke, now does Duke have all their players back?
No, they're still missing.
And they're still looking, they score like, they're the best offensive team just with Kennard and Grayson Allen.
Kennard right now, if you had to pick a player of the year in the country, you would have to put him in the discussion. I'm telling you, Greg, he is playing at he makes shots going left, going right. He hits threes. He puts it to the deck. He passes. He rebounds. He's really, really good. And, Grayson Allen went out of his mind last night against UNLV. So they're good. They're the real deal.
All right, I got 30 seconds, and this is tough to give you in 30 seconds. But, I think going into the year, people may have thought Kentucky had the edge on Louisville. How comfortable are you feeling that Louisville might have enough to get it done?
I think they can
21st.
win the game. I think that Kentucky will be the favorite in the game, and I think they frankly deserve to be the favorite in the game, but I think Louisville is at home. I think Rick really likes this team, and I think they certainly have more than a puncher's chance.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Listen to him on ESPN 680, and we'll see you next Sunday night here at the Sunday Sports Buzz.